And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5. This is Football Saturday with Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent, Johnny Ward, the broadcaster and journalist in studio with me, and Mark Lawrenson, the former Republic of Ireland international, European Cup winner, 5-time league winner with Liverpool, on the line as well. Remember, our coverage on Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Watch every live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. You can text us 53106, tweet us at Off the Ball. You can listen on News Talk on your radio and also watch us on the digital and social channels for Periscope and Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. Laro, good afternoon. Very entertaining goalless draw in the Merseyside derby there.
Yeah, unusual, wasn't it, to be entertaining for a 0-0. So, and I think a better point for Everton certainly than Liverpool. But yeah, it was good. It was good to watch. So, a little bit of goal mouth action, etc. And still stuttering a little bit, Liverpool, in terms of the start. But it's a good point for Everton. I mean, they fought really hard and they were difficult to break down. And
Pickford gets a lot of stick, but he was brilliant today.
Yeah, he's been excellent. I mean, towards the end of last season and then the start of this season, he really has been tops. And I think from his point of view, it's good timing with the World Cup coming up, November. I think he is England's number one. I don't see anybody disposing him in that position, certainly.
So you've got the ear to the ground on Merseyside there, Mark. Why are Liverpool not firing as well as they could be?
Well, obviously, injuries, John, is a major thing. Midfield would have needed players anyway without injuries. No Thiago, but I think the problem's been that Klopp works his first team squad very, very hard for the season. Basically, that sort of 3 or 4 weeks is the prep for the following whatever many games, isn't it? 38, and I don't think they've had much rest in between finishing last season. Obviously, played the end of May in terms of the Champions League, and they've come back early. And I just think they've worked so hard that they're picking up all sorts of injuries, all sorts of strains, all sorts of things like that. And it's just not helped them. So they've looked sluggish, haven't they? I mean, take away the Bournemouth result, which obviously was an excellent result, but Bournemouth were all over the place, even against Newcastle. On Wednesday night, I was there at Anfield, and obviously they won, which was the main thing, but they're a little bit away yet, and obviously they're playing one or two of the younger players as well. You don't get instantaneous performances generally from the younger players, but they miss Thiago like nobody else at the moment because, especially in a game like today, to see that little opening and play the likes of Salah and Nunes and all those Diaz and all those players through just really wasn't happening.
Yeah, I think, Lauro, I think the last time you were on with us on the Saturday, it was after that game I think it was after the Fulham game. And I remember you saying at the time that they'd arranged that bounce game, that friendly against Villa on the Sunday. Was there even a sense that they were a little bit fearful at the start of the season about sort of conditioning or where they were at? Was there a little apprehension, or has it still maybe surprised people that they've struggled a bit?
I think it's just surprised people because I think I probably said to you as well that when you start the season, you think you're fit. You think you've done everything in terms of for the whole squad, etc. But until you play teams, obviously from the league in the first 5 or 6, you don't really know. But I think in fitness terms now, they look like they're getting there. The problem is as well that that's a factor. But I think the fullbacks have been stopped on a regular basis now, apart from Bournemouth, and it's been. I think the clubs who've played against us, they've kind of gone, right, you know what, go sit on whether it's Robertson, obviously, Tsimikas, whatever, or Trent, go and sit on them and say to them, come on then, come and beat us. And I think that's at the moment for the opposition, I think that's working. Newcastle did it and really should have got a point from that game. They led to their own downfall, obviously, with all the time wasting. But I just think teams have worked out how to play against Liverpool at the moment. And I'll keep mentioning it, but without Thiago, they don't have that kind of surprise element in terms of the passes, his range of passes, etc. The way he can pass, he sees things in games that mere mortals in that team don't see. And they're, the two young lads obviously started today, but generally when everyone else has played, it's just been pretty medium, if that's a decent description. And they're going, yeah, they work hard, your Milners and your Hendersons, all those kind of players really, really work hard. But they haven't got that ability to pick a pass, pick out, 25-yard, 30-yard pass into somebody's feet or into somebody running onto it. And I think that's the major problem at the moment.
In terms of like the forward options, I didn't see all of the game today. What was the verdict on Nunes today? Because obviously there was a feeling he might give them a different type of threat, but I don't know, what was the feeling?
Well, he had a couple of headers, etc., and he shot, which Pickford saved brilliantly. Service wasn't great, but it was the typical 100-mile-an-hour derby anyway. But I actually thought he'd start with Firmino today. I really seriously did, because of the way that Firmino was in the last couple of games. I didn't think Nunes would have started. He's a really good player. He's going to get there, but he's had a strange start, hasn't he? He came on against Fulham and scored, and then got sent off as well. Obviously, the next game, so he's then missed 3, and now he's come back. So it would be fair to say that his start has been somewhat stifled, but you can see he can play. I don't think there's any doubt on that. But
service, isn't it? Though service.
Yeah, of course it is. Absolutely, totally is, John. It's that whole midfield area, and I think obviously Klopp realises that. But at the moment, and the statement that he's played Carvalho and Harvey as well, Harvey Elliott is like in the derby against Everton. It's obviously he's sort of saying, well, they've got the cojones to play, but you need to play played 150 games to play in these games and know exactly what's happening, because it's just so everything passes by so quickly and the game just whizzes past you. And with as much ability as they've got, there's absolutely no chance that you can get hold of the ball and get your head up, because Derby's renowned for the fact that that's exactly the opposite to what happens.
Yeah, Arthur obviously has been brought in now, hasn't he, as a kind of a midfield option. It's just a case, though, that Milner, Henderson, these players are maybe, there needs to be a freshness there in the Liverpool team. Like Elliott's been one of the best players in the Liverpool team the last few weeks, and maybe they just need they're a team that I think a lot of people are feeling are a little bit stale.
Yeah, no, I would accede to that most definitely. And the Milners and the Hendersons are just the real top pros. But how many times do you see a Henderson through ball, open up defences? Certainly not Milner. He wouldn't be of that stature now because obviously his age, etc. And there's just been a bit of much of a muchness. And there is no, I hate to use the word when everybody else uses it, there's no X factor about their midfield. You don't kind of think that, somebody's going to get on the ball and do something a little bit different. And at the moment, it's all very, very obvious. And as I said, the way that teams are playing against them and stopping the fullbacks. I mean, I don't know the stats, but the number of chances and goals made by the two fullbacks, the regular two fullbacks in the last few years, has just been absolutely phenomenal. And all of a sudden now, when you don't get that, they're just starting to look a bit ordinary.
Johnny, you've been posting on social media your Liverpool memorabilia this week.
I have, yeah. Showed the second half of the show. They've come a long way since those days, JD, in the mid-90s. So I was home this week, and with Dan reaching the 40s this week, I just thought I'd throw
Congratulations, Dan.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
To Dan,
that was a really
no coming back from that.
That was a really sort of necessary distraction that nothing to do with your point, really.
Kind of reminds me of the Nana and the royal family at the wedding, when she goes, the granddaughter's getting married, and she's like, this is the happiest day of your life, it's all downhill from here. So hopefully it gets better. But no, so the second half of the show, JD will show a few of the old items I picked up when I was a kid from Ireland games, and I think you have a couple of programmes yourself. Just on Liverpool, I think Liverpool are now in the realms of the Champions League is kind of going to be their main priority this season, and finishing in the top 4, because the title is, they're just conceding far too many points. If they hadn't beaten Newcastle, the only win they would have had was against Bournemouth, and they've a lot of problems in the team at the moment. I think the Van Dijk kind of invincibility is gone at this stage. He's definitely not playing as well as he was. He was kind of lucky not to get sent off today, I think. They look vulnerable when they lose possession. Everton had that memorable chance from a corner in the second half where they totally overrun. Obviously a Liverpool midfield with 2 young players. They've a lot of players ready to score goals, but Salah had 4 shots on target all season going into today, so he hasn't really hit the notes yet, and they're dropping too many points. it feels like Liverpool are suddenly in transition, and I think this season's going to be interesting. I think City will walk the league at this stage, but there probably isn't an awful lot between the rest, and Everton deserve credit as well. I was critical of Everton, having watched them earlier this season. I've actually seen nearly more of Everton than any other team because I saw them against Leeds the other night, JD, and Lampard had them very well set up. They had a great attitude. Two of the top three players today, the two top players today who for yards run were Everton players. They seem to have a bit of bite about them. Gordon
need a striker. Mulpane is an absolute sitter.
Absolute sitter, but one byproduct of all of this from Everton, I don't know what's going to happen with Gordon, and you know he's not leaving obviously until January at least. Yeah, I think I'm not sure how. It's a nice story that he's playing for Everton, his local club and all that. I'm not sure how long he's going to be there, but for Seamus Coleman, I don't see him getting into that team.
Patterson played well today.
He was really good against Leeds. He's a young player. He looks like a player that could develop into a very good attacking player as well, because he had a great chance against Leeds, and he was involved today as well. I don't know what you made of him, Laura, but he looks like a player that Everton fans are going to fall in love with.
Yeah, no, he's got a calmness about him as well, but he was aware today that, playing up against the likes of Salah and Diaz and those guys, it was all about his defensive part of the game, which is good. But no, he picks a pass out and he gets his head up. So, yeah, I think it looks like he's going to be a good purchase for Everton, certainly.
53106, Liverpool fan getting worried that not only is the league gone, we might not even make the top four at this rate, says Brian. And hi lads, looking like Frank Lampard is making real progress with Everton. Liverpool, on the other hand, not at the same level as the last few seasons. Great result for Celtic, 4-0 win over Rangers, but they might struggle to hold on to their manager, says Sean.
I wouldn't completely laugh it off, Laura, because Liverpool should obviously make the top four, but if you look at their games in isolation, I came in after the Fulham game and I said Liverpool are miles off it, but that was the first game. You look after 5 games now against Newcastle, I thought they barely deserved to win the game. Against Man United, they didn't deserve to get anything out of the game. Today was probably a fair result against Everton. Against Fulham, probably a fair result. So you kind of start slightly worrying, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't think there's any doubt about that whatsoever. So, and I'm obviously banging on about Thiago coming back, but he's not going to sort out all the problems at the moment. And I just do think there's been a hangover from the 28th, from the Real Madrid Champions League final, and they looked a little bit kind of undercooked. And as I say, that the teams are now saying, well, this is what we do. We play 2 guys wide, make it really, really difficult, sit in, and just to go on then, try and beat us. And I mean, Everton was set up defensively. I think Everton will be fine this season because I think defensively, they're not going to concede too many goals. And if Calvert-Lewin gets fit, and when he gets fit and he's back and he's playing and scoring, they'll be halfway up the league most definitely. But yeah, we know it's early doors, but I'm with you.
I think there's an element of truth as well, JD, to what Laura was saying about teams figuring Liverpool out, because the stats against Man United possession-wise, the stats against
today, possession, the most possession
the stats
today.
To Newcastle against Newcastle, the stats today, they are sort of dominating the ball, but you're not coming away from the game feeling, no, Liverpool should have won that game. So there are positives in terms of they're still controlling games, but that
whirlwind intensity, that's really a home thing.
At their peak, they weren't necessarily dominating possession games. That was the thing. They were like this. At times it was people went through that phase of possession is everything to know. It's like counter-attacking, and brilliant counter-attacking is everything. And yeah, it's true. Like this is why it's so hard to maintain it at the top team. Like to almost sort of manage a dynasty over a period of time. Like you have to invent and reinvent yourself, several times to avoid being called out. And that's probably why Mane goes, and that's why you try and do things to sort of, it's just keep the wheel turning a bit, but you'll eventually hit a point where teams, they find a way to stop you. But you sort of associate Liverpool again with, they've faced that before. They faced teams letting them have it before, and they just have this incredible intensity they operate that they just kill teams and it wears them down. When they don't have that at the moment, when they're not 100% at it physically, they can't be their true selves, and that's clearly what's evident.
What's the vibe around Klopp's mood down on Merseyside way, Laro? Is he cutting a frustrated figure?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. But look, he's had this before, hasn't he? In his managerial years, where he's had really, really good years consecutively, and then he has a little bit of a year where it's not quite the same, and it drops off. So we hope that's not the way. But at the moment, it's looking a little bit like that. And there is a transition, I mean, brave decision to pick the two young lads today. Yeah, they've got loads of ability, but to really influence a derby match away from home, especially at Goodison, is a big ask. And
I think the Firmino call, Laura, I think you're right though. I think the Firmino call was nearly more of a gamble because of his ability to just unlock a defence, which Liverpool just didn't really have.
No, I didn't understand why he didn't start, because he's been excellent when he started, and he's different. He's different from anything else that they've got, and would have got into little pockets maybe where Everton couldn't really pick him up, and he plays with his head up all the time. He's more than happy to play players in rather than try and go for goal himself, and I think that was a little bit of a mistake today. I was really surprised that Nuno started. I just thought they'd leave him on the bench, see how it goes, and then chuck him on later in the game. But I think Klopp was a little bit with him, thinking, you got sent off, it's going to be red hot derby, I'm going to chuck you in because I want to see how you actually perform under all this pressure. But, same thing for him. I mean, he doesn't even speak the language yet, so he obviously speaks the language of football, but and he didn't have too many chances at all. But they're short at the moment, and that's basically it. So looks the way that City will walk away with it, and that's a massively early statement of sixth game, which is ridiculous, but the way they are. But I do think Liverpool will still be on the best of the rest, as it were.
53106, Trent has been found out in defence. Great going forward, though, says one of our texters. Another one, Deeney Hammond's words at the end of the last season look prophetic now when he said that Klopp would find it hard to lift that team again after getting so close to everything, but yet so far, says Niall in Dublin. We're watching the Spurs game against Fulham here, goalless at the moment. It is Brentford 0, Leeds 0. Also goalless in all the other matches. Wesley Fofana making his Chelsea debut against West Ham, Newcastle against Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest against Bournemouth, and Wolves against Southampton. Manchester City kick off against Aston Villa at 5:30. We do have to mention Celtic 4-0 winners over Rangers, but obviously we were all watching the Everton Liverpool game. But it just kind of feels a bit soulless to me, lads. I know they're playing Real Madrid. That'll be great during the week in the Champions League, but it's just a duopoly. It's like Alex Ferguson was the last manager outside of Celtic and Rangers to win the Scottish League, 1985. Yeah,
I mean, and obviously in that time, Rangers have sort of died and come back to life, and you have to get the technicalities of that right, or you get a load of text messages in, and you spend the rest of your life dealing with it. But I mean, that was probably even more soulless. I mean, now there is a title race. There has been title races in recent years, and to be fair, if you describe that as soulless, well, then is the Bundesliga soulless? Is there what other leagues? There's plenty of leagues around Europe that are soulless by that definition. So I understand the point, and it sort of comes up again and again, but I don't know. I think it's probably in a better place now, Scottish football, than it has been in recent seasons, notwithstanding the fact that Celtic and Rangers' performances in Europe have carried Scotland up into the top 10 leagues in Europe. Their ranking is fantastically good, and yet you see their other teams in Europe have all lost their ties so far. Hearts have got into the Conference League group stages by not winning a game, but effectively just because of Celtic and Rangers. So that is a problem. But I don't know. Rangers were in the Europa League final last year. The Celtic are in the Champions. Both are in the Champions League this year. They're obviously playing at a good level, but I mean, I don't know what's the solution. People talk every so often about let them into the English league or something like that. But I mean, that's not. I mean, I can't see how that's going to operate.
Would it be good?
Maybe it might be good, but I mean, I don't see it can happen. I mean, there's a small matter of an independence referendum coming in Scotland in the next period of time. People talk about Swansea and Cardiff. That's because there was no Welsh league until 1992. So you're talking about hopping across leagues. If you start clubs hopping across leagues,
you have a European Super League.
Well, I mean, there you go. I mean, you probably have one at the moment anyway, with the figures of the spending with the major leagues during the transfer window, which is sort of terrifying, the extent to which the Premier League is now so far ahead of everything else. But I don't know, what is a proposed solution if we think there is a problem to diagnose?
But I suppose the question is, what is the attraction of watching Scottish football apart from watching the Old Firm games?
Well, funny,
Glad you said that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, funny enough, and Tim Clancy's spoken about this when he played over there. Like, the Scottish media is like completely immersed in Scottish football, not just the Old Firm, and like the attendances are really, really good.
Hibs and Hearts games, for example.
Hibs and Hearts,
would be.
And it's strange to me that maybe Hearts look like that they might at one stage when they had that investment. It's strange to me that somebody wouldn't get one of the Edinburgh clubs to kind of get there. But we had this curious situation today, JD, where there was an article in The Guardian, which was a thought-provoking article about the duopoly, and I think as Dan says, whatever, the only thing worse than duopoly is a monopoly, and at least there are two teams that in theory could win the league year in, year out. But the article in The Guardian, which was basically repeated in the Irish Times, the Irish Times would use most of its British football coverage from British media, which is fair enough, basically mocking the fact that Motherwell were knocked out of Europe by Sligo Rovers this year, who happened to be an Irish club. But that's how, hurtful that seems to Scottish football, that the minnows, as they were called in the Scottish press from Ireland, could beat Motherwell 3-0. And it's hard to get away from that. Like, Sligo then went out and were absolutely battered by a team from Norway. And that's the levels you're at. And I don't really know what the answer is. I don't agree with the fact that Scotland could just chuck two of its teams into what's effectively, a foreign league. And I think the Scottish referendum, I think there's every chance that will pass. But for me, I've never seen the attraction of it at all, to be honest.
I don't know. Like I would have been there a bit with Irish players. Like as Johnny said, I mean, it's sort of a thriving football culture in its own right. In the sense, like attendances are pretty good. They're the highest per capita attendances in Europe. Yes, there's no doubt that the Celtic and Rangers average attendance has helped that. But even still, as you said, like Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, who would have been the club you're referring to with the Alex Ferguson's time. I mean, there's sort of powerful enough football institutions there. But again, like it's a bit like here we not suffer, but the proximity to England means you're sort of everything is cast in that light. Like you would see someone like Jamie McGrath, for example, sort of a standing in the in the Scottish top flight, and he went down to Wigan in the third tier in England and found it hard. And in reality, financially, like in a lot of cases, players will pick League One. As we've had here about League of Ireland players, but players would pick like a League One thing over a Scottish top flight thing in a lot of cases, unless it's Celtic and Rangers. But I don't know. Like I feel like it's one of these things that people will debate every so often, and people will say, "What do we do about this?" And it just goes away.
A circular argument.
It just goes away.
Go on.
Yeah.
Do you think if Celtic and Rangers were in the Premier League that it would improve the Premier League?
I think it would improve from a branding perspective.
Yeah,
I think with like so many Irish Celtic fans would be loving to go over to Liverpool or Manchester or London every second week.
I'd be more interested in what would it do for Scotland if the two of them left, and what sort of league would you have them? Would fans of Motherwell?
Celtic and Rangers are still massive clubs, Massive
Oh, they are.
clubs.
Yeah, they're huge, but they're not going to see. The thing is, it's so hypothetical. Like, I mean, there's no way that the Premier League clubs are going to go, let's have 22 in it, or let's even better. Why don't us turkeys vote for this Christmas here? And,
Why do we have to bring reality into the situation?
Okay, sorry. Okay, well, even in the hypothetical, but are they like they're obviously huge clubs? But does the Premier League even need that branding boost? If you know what I mean?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Like Nottingham Forest coming back is amazing because like that's a huge fan base and stuff. There's loads of clubs in the Championship who would enhance the Premier League by being in it. It's not as if people sit around and talk about the Premier League and say, I feel like the Premier League's really missing some big clubs. Like it's not a discussion that people would have.
Yeah, isn't it? They sit around talk. We all do it as well on long trips and go, well, what would your ideal 20 be in the Premier League? Well, it wouldn't include Fulham, would it? It wouldn't include Bournemouth and the likes of that. So in terms of Celtic and Rangers, I think as well they would struggle anyway, which is, I would say it's hypothetical, but that it wouldn't improve the league for me at all.
It does feel to me there was that great clip in Succession, which must be the most depressing series ever.
I've never seen it, by the way.
Oh man,
brilliant, John! You got to watch it.
Absolutely top class.
It's top class. Yeah. It's like you literally. So if you have 20 characters, none of them likable. Like there's not one likable person in the whole series. Yet it's
that's subjective, Johnny. Subjective.
I think even Laura will agree with me on that. I mean, Laura, did you like any of them? Some of them were good looking.
Yeah. I love in there Greg.
Greg was a great character, but again, he was repulsive. I mean, he just was out for himself and like just kind of.
No spoilers, Johnny. No spoilers, please.
No spoilers. Yeah, Greg is a joke of a character. But anyway, there was that great scene where the patriarch of the family,
is that your guy Brian? What's his name? The actor,
Scottish guy.
Acted in a film about the Troubles actually years ago. That was the first time I came across him. Anyway, he's basically one of his subordinates, I forget, wants to buy him a football club, and they mix up that he's a Hearts fan instead of a Hibs fan. Yeah. And it's like, that's how kind of, that's where Scottish football is, apart from the big two. But it has always surprised me that someone with a lot of money couldn't get Hibs or Hearts to at least give it a go for a year or two. Like, you look at Ludogorets, how they've just exploded from all the money that they got in Bulgaria, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
that was an unusual tangent.
But the Hibs Hearts thing to me was more, the Hibs Hearts thing to me didn't sound about Scottish football. It was more like, this is probably how some American people have bought Premier League
Absolutely.
clubs.
Oh, Hibs, no, Hearts. Oh, yeah, whatever. Yeah, begins with H.
American investment in football in Europe, and we've seen it closer to home here as well too. You kind of wonder the extent to which due diligence and discussions actually.
We never spoke about Succession. Like we spend so much time together, and we don't know much about each other at all.
Something we actually have in common that we watched it. And you're also turning 40 in a month or two as well. Yeah. There's been a very significant goal in the Championship today, and Laura will know the significance of this because Preston have actually conceded a goal. Which is,
I thought you were going to say they scored.
Sorry, but that's the first goal they've conceded this season. Like, Preston have played 7 league games prior to today. 5 of them finished 0-0, and they won the other 2 1-0. And they've had this really weird season that was sort of like, how far could you go with that? But it hasn't gone that far because they've conceded against Birmingham today. It's the first goal. 8 games in, though. It's sort of mad.
Maxime Collin.
Yeah.
Good old Maxime.
Yeah, it is Norwich 1, Coventry 0. So Omar Bamidele scored during the week. Timo Pukki has scored now for Norwich. They're like doing what they always do, flying high at the top of the Championship. Rotherham 1, Watford 0 as well in the Championship.
Wow.
And we also have Swansea 1, QPR 0. So these are scores coming in from the Championship. We also have Blackburn 0, Bristol City 0, Luton 0, Wigan 0, Millwall 0, Cardiff 0 in those games. Also in the Championship. No goals so far in the 3 o'clock games in the Premier League. Brentford Leeds, Chelsea West Ham, Fofana making his debut today, Newcastle against Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest against Bournemouth, Tottenham against Fulham, and Wolves versus Southampton. Aston Villa play Manchester City at 5:30. Where do you begin, Mark, on Erling Haaland? Like, this guy is unplayable. You were one of the top centre halves in English football. How do you stop Erling Haaland?
Well, you need to stop De Bruyne first. So he's been brilliant, and he just really explosive. Can't speak highly enough about him. We did wonder that, if he would have enough space in which to score his goals. But as we've seen, his movement, I think his movement is the most impressive thing. Yes, obviously, the goal scoring, but his movement of knowing where to move, when to move, how quickly to move has been excellent. And, they just look fabulous at the moment, Manchester City. And I wouldn't give him the Championship yet, but they won't be far off if he stays fit, will they? I
can quite visualise Laro involved in the battle with Haaland, because I saw footage of you playing for Ireland against Spain in Lansdowne Road in a 1984 qualifier today, Laro, I think, throwing your hands in the air after concession of a goal.
Oh, I don't know. News,
do you remember that?
To me. You mean I was guilty?
Well, you were kind of like, what was this like? Is this lad at the edge of the box, too much space for me?
All right. Well, I'll take that one.
Do you remember that Spain 83, give or take?
No. I can't remember yesterday. I'm going to remember 83.
But Mark,
was it a 3-3 thing?
It was 1-1, and after the goal that you conceded, I moved on to another page or whatever. But I don't know what the score was. I
think it was Mick Martin's fault. Bungie.
Right. We'll have to look it up.
That's what I'm saying. If you've not seen the footage, I'm going, it was his fault.
You must have marked some great number 9s though, Laro.
Yeah. But I mean,
and you remember?
But the thing about that generally is, and I don't mean this in a kind of mad way, is that we would be dominating games with Liverpool, wouldn't we? And generally the players you were playing against didn't have much of a kick of the ball, which was always good, because we had such an outstanding team. And football was different because every team in the Football League that was then had just a great big centre forward who was more interested in knocking your block off than actually scoring, you felt at times. So, and you could only play against the teams you played against. But with Ireland was much more difficult because generally we were underdogs. But I think we, even against like the French and the Dutch and...
Did you play against Hullis Van Basten? Did you play against them in those qualifiers?
No. No, I didn't. I played against Hullet. That I do remember. I don't remember playing against Van Basten. In fact, Hullet, we played them at home, and he played as a sweeper in the first half, and they moved him up into midfield in the second half, and he completely destroyed us. But we had some good results against Holland. And everyone goes on about Jason McAteer's goal. I think I scored against him when we won 2-1 in a qualifier at home. And then we got a late equaliser against them in Amsterdam. I certainly recall. But it's one of those, and it's if you're playing against a team that are outstanding and have got the ball, and obviously they're going to get their players in all the time. But the other thing for me, and I can only speak about myself personally, I mean, I never played at the back for Jack. I didn't play that many games anyway, but he'd always said to me that I was going to play in midfield for him. And I played quite a lot in midfield for throwing hands. And also I had a spell playing right back, I seem to recall as well.
Okay. Spurs just hit the post for his son. Goal
it's a crossbar, JD. It's been woodwork mania so far in the Premier League today.
Yeah.
It was a brilliant move. Harry Kane, instinctive ball, Son's in, should score, but hits the crossbar, and it was a great chance.
How many is Haaland going to score? Can you make your prediction now?
More than I think the record. I think the 42-game record is 34 goals. Obviously, the English League record, because the football didn't start in 1992, is 60. He's not going to get that many. I think he'll get 40.
Think he'll get 40.
But I think it's about fitness with him. Like, he could end up with only 20 if he's not fit for 2 to 3 months. Brentford has scored, by the way, against Leeds. 1-0, Ivan Toney with the goal in London. And Nottingham Forest lead Bournemouth by a goal to 0. This goal scored by Cheku Kouyaté at the City Ground. Made a lot of signings in
21 signings Forest made in the window.
21.
How mad is that?
It's incredible. I mean, I saw someone make the point, like, it's obviously a 25-man Premier League squad, so I'm not sure if all 21 of them have gone into their squad. And I know they had a lot of loanees last year, but I mean, I know there'll be sort of people listening who are fond of Forest and stuff, but I don't know, there's something a little bit charmless about that.
Totally.
To make that, I mean, and clearly it's like, we have our chance in the Premier League, let's do whatever we can to stay here. But I don't know, it's sort of reflective of the modern Premier League in a way, their approach to it.
You were part of our legendary promotion push. All the best.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I think he's the man. The owner's gambling like mad, isn't he?
Yeah,
absolutely. Totally. It's just he's throwing the dice already, and I'd hate to think what would happen if they get relegated.
Yeah. I think that's bang on, to be honest.
Yeah. 53106. Hi lads. What's the interest in supporting an SPL team outside of Celtic or Rangers? How about years of tradition, family, in the sense community supporting the local team? Says Brendan, painting my landing and loving the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it would be from the perspective of looking at from afar from somebody in Ireland. I never really got, like, Scottish football never appealed to me full stop, but I've great time for the local supporters. But you see that in England as well, like unbelievable support for teams across 4 divisions, even into 5 divisions, and I mean, it's always a logical thing to me to support a local team, absolutely, and I support a team who've never won anything, so I can relate to that.
I just think there's a huge amount of Irish fans naturally will support Celtic, and that's why it's relevant.
It does have a history, in fairness, so the history is absolutely
and all
there.
the Irish players used to play for them. Mick McCarthy, Packy Bonner, Chris Morris back in the day. So a lot of players would have grown up supporting Celtic, watching Celtic, are interested in Celtic, are invested in Celtic. That's why we're just asking the question. I'm a big Celtic head. Should Scottish football, is it a better option? Maybe it's the only option, but it's just a shame that it's maybe not as competitive. Although Niall, listening from Sydney, has got in touch to say Shane Duffy signed for Celtic at a terrible time in the Scottish League, shows how the league is more competitive than people think. Maybe that was more about Shane Duffy and Celtic not being the right fit for him at the time. Yeah,
but Celtic's they're huge clubs, and they're also, it's funny, like Laura spoke there about playing in a team that's dominant. Like, sometimes players will go to Celtic and the way they play and what's asked of them in games might be different to what's asked of them in England, where maybe they're defending their box a lot and they have different attributes that come to the fore. So but Duffy was also going through a pretty tough time, and I think people will take isolated instances to prove some theory they have. I mean, you can find others that prove something completely different. I don't think Duffy struggled because the level in Scotland was so high. I think it was more to what was happening to him at that time.
City, is Haaland going to be the game changer then with the Champions League? Do you think? Is it too early to say, Laura? Because even though they've changed the style of play a bit, you'd worry for Grealish, I would have to say. Although I was reading today that Pep likes aspects of the fact that he can slow down the play. But Alvarez came in against Forest, hit the ground running, 2 goals.
I don't know. I don't know about him being the game changer. I think for me, that the City's problem in the Champions League has been the manager. As good a manager as he undoubtedly is, he just made some strange decisions, and he's made strange decisions in really, really important games, as in the knockout games, etc. And obviously he's got a belief about the way that he's playing. But look, they should have beaten Madrid, shouldn't they? Yeah. They honestly should absolutely have walked away from that game. Three goals to the good. And he made some strange changes towards the end. And I know people say, "Oh, Grealish had 2 great chances, etc." But when you failed every year, and it is a failure for City, obviously, because of what they've got. But you failed every year to get at least to the final. But at some stage, you get in a game against Real Madrid, and you think, right, we're in the lead, with 2 goals in the lead, whatever it is, we just make sure, whatever happens, we just see this out. And you may be a football manager who's a purist, and I get that, but for goodness sake, just get into the final. He did the same thing, was it Lyon a few years ago as well? Played a different system, which players haven't played in before. They hadn't even trained in
final
that
against Chelsea, didn't play a defensive midfielder.
Yeah. So maybe he might be the difference, Haaland, and the way he's going, he probably will be. But I think that Pep's the problem when they get to those later stages.
The loaded comment. But in fairness, Pep must, in terms of his motivation and what keeps him so interested, I think what's key to Pep, as you referenced at the top, JD, is that he's always trying to innovate, and that could be an issue with Liverpool in that maybe teams have figured them out a bit. Where Man City look like if you score 6 goals this season, we'll score 9. That's the way they're going to play. I haven't
seen Calvin Phillips yet this season.
Yeah, and as well as that, he's going to be motivated and eaten alive by the fact that this Champions League thing.
Well, it's become an obsession.
Come on,
and I think it's become a negative obsession for him.
They've got to win it this year. With the state of football across Europe in general, Man City should just win it.
They can't, Johnny. It's a knockout competition.
Yeah,
I think this is the
look
thing.
at the Real Madrid game. You're like, how did this happen?
That's exactly what
and
I'm
now
saying.
They have Haaland.
Nobody can be the game changer. It's I just think a game changer.
For Spurs have scored.
Game changer for JD's mood.
Pierre-Emile Højbjerg 1-0 against Fulham.
A little bit more excitement in JD's voice fed update than other ones. But a game changer is a game changer. He'll win you a league, but I just think the City defeats, as Laura has mentioned, in the Champions League have been so mad in some respects.
Yeah.
That, I don't think anyone football isn't so predictable that someone is just going to be their game changer. And how many Ronaldo, Messi, terrific players, but they didn't dominate every final or semi-final they were in either. It's more about other factors, as you said, and it's a knockout competition, so nothing is ever going to be guaranteed with it.
You have De Bruyne, you have Haaland. Just don't screw it up and win the Champions League. Simples.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Got to take a break. 53106. Mark Lawrenson, Dan McDonnell, Johnny Ward. Football Saturday. Back after this. Welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5. Speaking to Mark Lawrenson on the line, the former Republic of Ireland defender and Liverpool legend, football correspondent of the Irish Independent, Dan McDonnell, and the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward. Remember, Football and Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Get all the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. You can text us 53106. Brentford have scored again, 2-0 against Leeds now. Ivan Toney with the second goal. Goals between Chelsea and West Ham. Newcastle 0, Crystal Palace 0. Nottingham Forest 1, Bournemouth 0 as the latest, with Sheku Kouyaté scoring for Forest. Spurs 1, Fulham 0, Højbjerg. Wolves 0, Southampton 0. Aston Villa Man City kicks off at 5:30 in the Championship. Blackburn 0, Bristol City 1. Luton 1, Wigan 0 as the latest. It is Millwall 0, Cardiff 0. Norwich 1, Coventry 0. Preston 0, Birmingham 1. Rotherham 1, Watford 1. Watford have equalised. And Swansea 1, QPR 0. In Scotland earlier, Celtic thrashed Rangers 4-0 in the Old Firm derby. Hibs 1, Kilmarnock 0 as the latest score. Livingston 1, Hearts 0. Motherwell 0, Dundee United 0. Ross County and Aberdeen are goalless. St Johnstone 1, St Mirren 0. It was goalless between Everton and Liverpool.
Just looking at one of these random games on the map today in England. Fleetwood against Wickham, and I'm not sure there's maybe a couple of Irish players playing, but you look at the bench, So on one bench, Darrell Horgan's on the bench for Wickham, which is, I don't know, has he been injured? Is that a reflection of where he's at the moment?
Side, John, yeah.
In and out of the side. And then on the other bench, Keane Hayes was an Irish international. Promise O'Mashare, has obviously gone from Bows. And Joe Garner, who used to room with Jack Byrne. Like, it's all these connections to Irish football, and friend of the show, Jack Byrne, and maybe they'll...
Fleetwood owners after buying Waterford as well.
There you go.
Just to add into your very, very bizarre tangent you've just gone on there.
It's, when you go to these lower league games, it's like the Irish influence in England is still so profound
Everywhere.
across the map.
Preston's a huge
Yes.
Robbie Brady's there and Troy Parris.
You still clued in at Preston, Mark?
Yeah.
Is Troy Parris, how's he doing?
It looks a league too high, to be honest with you.
Right.
That's not good.
He's had a couple of chances and stuff. It just looks a little bit of a.
Have you seen him play much now?
What?
Have you seen him play a bit at Deepdale?
Yeah. I've seen him play a couple of times. So look, it's new for him and it's a step up. And in all honesty, Preston do not create too many chances, John. I don't know if you saw the win at Coventry last week. They were battered and obviously got away with it. But look, works hard. But I don't, I think tops championship is going to be where he'll finish up.
That's a very interesting one now, because I be honest, I've said that to myself at times. Like, what is Troy Parris' level? Apparently he's, apart from not scoring, his figures and his KPIs, or whatever you want to say, are good for Preston. And he's, when he's played with Obafemi for Ireland, he's looked very good, but he doesn't have lightning pace. Spurs obviously still believe in him to some extent. I don't know the answer.
No, well, I think the Premier League teams are clever, aren't they? Give him a new contract, and they know eventually they're going to make some money out of him. There's no way he's going to be playing for Tottenham. That's just 2 or 3 leagues too high. He's a decent player and he's playing at a decent level, but I think that's where he'll end up.
Lewis Sinisterra scored for the second game in a row for Leeds. They now trail Brentford by 2-1. Nottingham Forest 2, Bournemouth 0 now.
Wow.
In that game at the City Ground. Brennan Johnson with a penalty for Forest, so much needed scoreline for them. And Wolves have finally scored a goal.
Wow.
Daniel Podence against Southampton, 1-0 lead at Molineux. These matches coming up to half time. 5-3-1-6. Hi lads, has Liverpool got no money to spend, or are they just not willing to spend it? I know they want value for money and they're doing the Anfield Road stand, but if the team had to be properly refreshed in the summer, wouldn't they be in this position now?
I definitely think Klopp needs to be called out in that, because we're 5 games in and they're 100%, they're done.
What's it got to do with Klopp? It's not Fenway.
No, but sorry, Klopp doesn't rush into signings, but he's whatever squad he's put together has not made anywhere near a good enough start, so the Liverpool are out of the title race after 5 games. So he's very, very, very kind of reserved and puts an awful lot of thought into making signings, and sometimes then you have an injury crisis and Liverpool just don't have the bodies to cope. He's been an amazing manager, but this is the first time where you're saying maybe there's a little bit of, okay, well, has Klopp made a few mistakes here with this?
I just think that, they've said to him that the money that they spent, that's it. I think the stand does have a big part to play as well. Sure, you ask any manager at any level, and they always say, I'm two players short of having a really top team. I do think they've been really unlucky with the injuries, whether it's because of the shortness in between end of last season and the start of this season. But he's always been, and he's waited. I mean, he waited for Van Dijk, did he not? And he waited for the goalkeeper, and that seemed to work in his favour. And then maybe it's going to be a season where things go against him, and probably we'll find out even more about him in that particular way. But there's no doubt he's got some outstanding players, but they're just, as I say, they've been sluggish. And I think he's had 5 or 6 midfield players injured all at the same time, which I don't care who you are. Even Manchester City, if that happens for them, they're going to struggle a little bit, and your man won't be scoring as many goals I wouldn't have thought.
5-3-1-6. Mark Lawrenson scored one of the best goals ever to secure a 2-1 win against Holland. A fabulous diving header. I think it was 1980 that the goal was scored in. It wasn't yesterday.
You know what,
yeah.
John? I played in midfield that day and it was absolutely crap.
Okay.
And because I scored, I think it was Liam Brady's free kick came in and they all stopped, the Dutch lot, and I just dived in and headed it. And everybody said I was brilliant. I was hopeless. I mean, it wasn't a bad goal to be fair, but I was hopeless. It just shows you, doesn't it, that people just because of one thing in a game, it's suddenly like, oh my God, did you see that? It was brilliant. And honestly, I couldn't. I think I played with my boots tied together. To be honest with you,
it's like the whole no pictures on the scorecard type of thing in golf, isn't it? You got the birdie on the card, so that's all that mattered, really. You know.
Well, and the other thing, it was a massive scalp for us, wasn't it? Because it was Holland.
Well, they were in the World Cup final 2 years previously, yeah. So
yeah. So I'd love to tell you that was absolutely brilliant, but I would be lying.
Were you happier scoring after a crap performance, or sort of like playing well but like not being remembered?
You just want to play well, don't you? I mean, the goal scoring thing is just a bonus. I mean, it was like the one against Scotland as well, wasn't it? So, which obviously was quite a big goal as far as the country were concerned. But it's always nice to score, but it wasn't really my job.
Do you score many goals for Liverpool?
No, I don't. Maybe got 20 or something. I'm not quite sure. I played in midfield quite a lot as well at Liverpool. In fact, as soon as you've asked, I played in all 8 outfield positions apart from the front 2 for Liverpool. In 350 odd games or something. Someone was asking me about this the other day, but.
How were you on the wings? Sorry, like how often did you play on the left or right side of midfield?
I played my second. I think it's the third game when I joined. I played on the left side of midfield at home again. I can't remember who I played at home against. I played quite a few times, and then I had a spell playing on the right, which sort of ended when I came up against Stuart Pearce. In all honesty,
all right.
But I played loads with Graham Souness, and I generally got thrown into midfield when he wasn't available and he wasn't playing, and he put me away a bit in a nice way on was it TV3 I think, because he was speaking about his career and all that, and he said I used to wait to tackle people because I wanted to really feel like the tackle, and I think he gave Ronnie a bit of stick, didn't he? Ronnie Whelan, we were laughing about it, but what a player he was, Souness.
Yeah, 5-3 on the 6 for somebody who can't remember yesterday. Lara's got a pretty clear recollection of a goal he got 42 years ago, says Dave.
I look every day. I look at the programmes every day, John. Not.
Yeah, well, I do because I've no life. Out of
too deep, JD. It's too deep.
Out of the title race, don't make me laugh. We'll click into gear soon, says David and Cavan. I'd say as a Liverpool fan. Hi lads, Klopp is doing what Klopp does. If he can't get what he wants, he doesn't buy anybody at all. He played a right side of midfielder, left back. PS, I'd say Bellingham is nailed on for next summer, says Keith in Dublin.
There are sort of moments as well. If Salah gets that goal at the end,
that's a narrative.
All
of a sudden it's not so bad.
They signed Luis Diaz and he was great. I think we would have been talking about their recruitment being very good. It's on point. They sign for what they need. Jota. This is they target what they want. And so I'm not sure if I'm coming around to like recruitment being some major issue now. Maybe. But
Van Dijk's an interesting one because what do you make from Laura? I don't know. Is it? I mean, obviously the Man United goal was kind of well advertised, but he just doesn't strike that fear maybe in players that he used to.
Briefly,
No, I'll give you that, but I don't think. I mean, Gomez has been scatty, hasn't he? Playing alongside him, which won't kind of help Van Dijk. And we've always said all along you could play anybody alongside Van Dijk, and it wouldn't make any difference because he's been brilliant and he has in the previous seasons. But he's just not quite there. But him and a load of others are not quite there, and there's we think there are reasons, but we don't know exactly. But they'll come good. I don't have any doubt about that. I still think that they'll be the ones to finish first behind Manchester City. I don't think anyone else is going to do it.
Okay, got to take a break for news here on Football Saturday with Mark Lawrenson, Dan McDonnell, Johnny Ward. Half times in the Premier League: Brentford 2, Leeds 1, Chelsea 0, West Ham 0. Not great for Chelsea. Newcastle 0, Crystal Palace 0. It is Nottingham Forest 2, Bournemouth 0. Tottenham 1, Fulham 0, and Wolves 1, Southampton 0. Half-5 start for Aston Villa against Manchester City. Earlier on, it was goalless between Everton and Liverpool in the Championship half-times. Blackburn 0, Bristol City 1. It's Luton 1, Wigan 0. Millwall 0, Cardiff 0. Norwich 2, Coventry 0. Preston 0, Birmingham 1. Rotherham 1, Watford 1. And Swansea 1, QPR 0. All at the break. And in Scotland, Celtic thumped Rangers 4-0 in the Premiership earlier on. At the moment, at the break, it's Hibernian 1, Kilmarnock 0. Livingston 1, Hearts 0. Motherwell 0, Dundee United 0. Ross County 0, Aberdeen 0. And St Johnstone 1, St Mirren 0. Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk is back after the news.
Man United versus Arsenal on Super Sunday. Live only on Sky Sports.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5 this evening. This is Football Saturday. Remember, football and off the ball brought to you by Sky. Watch every live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. You can text us 53106. Tweet us at Off the Ball. Listen on News Talk. Watch us as well on the digital and social channels for Periscope and Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. Joined on the line by Mark Lawrenson, former Republic of Ireland and Liverpool defender, Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent, and the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward. Dan, what a win. Doesn't matter about possibly the performance on the night. If you just needed to get the win, we got the win against Finland for the women's team on Thursday night in Tala. We're now into a kind of convoluted playoff system. Very difficult to understand, but we'll find out if we get through Slovakia on Tuesday, which is now really a game about seedings, not about the playoffs. Do we got a good chance of qualifying, do you think? What's your feeling?
I mean, the playoff system is like, let's not go there. Like, no, like, life is too short. But it is certainly... it's possible. I mean, it is a series of one-off playoff games. It's not sort of a two-legged playoff thing. And yeah, like there's obviously a potential to skip one round of it and stuff. Yeah, I was at the game on Thursday. I actually wasn't in the press box. I was sort of out in the sort of the regular seats, which was sort of a different experience because it was a record crowd, like the biggest crowd ever at a senior women's game. Very young crowd, very different feel. Atmosphere, I hear some people, it was an amazing atmosphere. I don't really think it was. I think there's probably some lessons to be learned about maybe even ticketing. There was empty seats that there shouldn't have been. And I'd imagine maybe lessons will be learned from that going forward. Take all of that out of it. I was writing about that in the paper today, the sort of the vibe around it. But in terms of the football significance, I mean, they've put themselves in a great position. And I actually thought, yeah, they didn't play particularly well. The performance wasn't great, but probably speaking from the perspective of being in the crowd as well, there wasn't that. People weren't on edge in the second half. I actually thought they managed it reasonably well.
Were they tense at the start?
They were.
Was the nerves?
First half wasn't good. Finland had a lot of the ball, and I wouldn't describe that Irish team as sort of an attacking team. Like, they've got good results away from home. They're probably one of those teams that's actually quite suited to play away from home. How they set up, like they play with sort of three defenders, and like they're, it's a sort of a back five at times, and maybe like that sort of front foot thing at home. They have this, like, Heather Payne is often a lone striker at times, like really strong runner, selfless, like, but almost a team that's like completely set up to be a better side away from home than at home, and that's a factor. But I don't know, I just thought they actually defended pretty competently. Like, they weren't sort of Courtney Brosnan, the goalkeeper, who's had her, I suppose, struggles in high profile games at the past. Like, her main job really was to be alert and to sweep quite well when Finland tried to knock the ball over the top. Did that quite well. So I don't know, I mean, they didn't play especially well, but they sort of did what you have to do, and they sort of look like a cup tie style team in some respects. That they've produced some big results in these one-off games, and the playoff is going to be, without pretending to be an expert about the sort of potential opponents they may face, because there's obviously all sorts of variables, you can see by looking at the team that it's going to be tight. Like, they're not going to blow someone away, like, and I think they're going to be, I don't think they're going to be sort of blown away by another team either, because of the qualities that they have. So it's going to be nervy, it's going to be tense. I think it's an open draw, so they could end up playing a home or away. I don't think that's determined by seeding. But they've given themselves a real chance. Like, they're quite an experienced side in parts. They've got like Katie McCabe, Denise O'Sullivan, two exceptional players, and they've put themselves into the discussion. I mean, that was obviously the regret the last time they blew it against Ukraine and had to sit and watch that Euros in the summer, which they possibly should have been a part of. There was definitely weaker teams than them in it. So need a bit of luck now, but they've made their own luck by sort of knocking out Finland to get there.
Laura, you live in England. You must have seen how electrified England was by winning that Euros and what it did for the women's game in England.
To be honest with you, John, I didn't, because I spent the summer in Mallorca. But
That's the
obviously,
most Laro answer I think I've ever heard in the show, to be honest.
well, it's true.
Yeah,
It's true, but you could obviously tell that it was a massive thing, and I think there's no doubt about it. In terms of the women's game in England, since the influx of foreign talent and the money, it's made a massive difference. You know, full-time training, proper coaching, obviously learning off top players has been great, and it'd be interesting to see how England go on now, kick on from there as well. So. They did brilliantly. I mean, I think the whole country was going nuts, but it wasn't where I was.
Johnny, what have you brought in?
Oh, memories, JD. Memories, anecdotes, and, withered husks of the past or whatever.
You bring that every week, but you've actually got some evidence this time.
This is, if you're listening on the radio, this is the slot for you because it's a visual slot. These are like...
You're going to have to be very descriptive then, Johnny.
2 match programmes, 2 old magazines, and I'll just start with... I was at home during the week just seeing my folks and...
in Colleague.
Thankfully, my mother has, I think I must have had 2 or 3 different bedrooms, even though we had a relatively small house when I was younger. It's like it's kind of an Irish thing. You have kids and they kind of move around and they share rooms and whatever. But my mother has kept some of these. I think this was my first Ireland game. Ireland v Croatia in '98.
I was at that game.
Were you at that game?
For FM 104.
Ireland won that 2-0.
2-0.
Yeah, Roy Keane, I think, scored.
Roy Keane and... So I can't remember that much about it, but Croatia had been playing in '98 in the...
Sure, they were
third
in the semi-finals.
Semi-finalists. So it was a big kind of scalp at that time, and I was looking at the squad list of the Croatian players: Davor Suker, Alen
Dennis
Bokšić,
Irwin penalty and Roy Keane.
Zvonimir Boban, and just kind of lovely to look back. And I was trying to remember who I was at the game with, but there's Mick McCarthy modelling for pennies in the end, and that was an interesting time because Ireland basically, I remember, were fairly comfortable winners against Croatia, who were obviously third in the world and serious players at that time. This was around a few years earlier where I was the LFC official magazine, as I called it, and I was a big John Scales fan. I remember when he signed for Liverpool, I thought he was the best thing ever, and there is Razor Ruddock on the front. And Roy Evans at that time, JD, was trying to challenge the kind of Man United dominance and got quite close. As you can see at the back, it's a free GEA stickers from Kellogg's Cornflakes pack.
That's fantastic.
And one of the best jerseys of all time on the back, I think Liverpool fans will remember.
The green and white.
The green and white.
Yeah.
Jamie Redknapp. There's so much in this.
Like, how often did that come out?
I think it was like...
Every day.
Yeah, this was volume 1, issue 2, so it was obviously a new thing. You can imagine me as a Liverpool fan when I found this. I was like, I think it was like maybe 4 times a year or something like that. And there was some interesting memories of going out in the cup against bad teams and all that. Just 2 others here. This is from February 1998, the Irish Soccer magazine. So when I got into the League of Ireland in '97, I started, possibly because a website Dan had. We'll talk about that another day. But I got into League of Ireland, and this is interesting because there's Desi Baker on the front, but the headline, FAI to fight Wimbledon all the way. And a lot of us remember that time when...
The Dublin Dons.
Dublin
I have
Dons were
stacks
so
of those
close.
magazines at home, actually, the Irish Soccer magazine, because there was a...
Is that still going? Is it gone?
No. So it was, I mean, look, it sort of does what it says in the tin. Like, it's an Irish Soccer magazine. There was primarily League of Ireland content, but then there was, like, the late Bob Hennessy would have been a journalist who would have sort of filed a lot of, say, Irish lads in the UK, would have spoken to a lot of them, little bits and bobs about someone at Fulham or someone at Darlington or someone or whatever. I
did loads of stuff for them, boys, for Bob.
I was just thinking,
Wow.
Bob was a sort of a character. He used to have everyone's number, I was told. It's before my time, but I've heard the legend of Bob. He was very, he was embedded, wasn't he, Laura, from what I hear? Yeah.
Softly spoken, players loved him because he never ever turned anybody over, which is always a bonus. But no, he's a lovely man.
It's funny as well, just going in.
When did that come out now, that Irish Soccer magazine?
It was monthly, and there are all these, you have all these different anecdotes. So this is one from September '97. So I'd gone to my first game in March, and being the enterprising young kid I was, I organised a bus from Newbridge in County Galway to go up and watch this little tournament, the Dublin tournament, which had PSV Eindhoven, Celtic, Newcastle and Derry City. So that was Derry steals the show with Alan Shearer there. And just if it's interesting, if you look at the other page, Richmond Park's new 2,500 seater stand is ready for the new season and will be the next development at Richmond Park. This is like 1997 and it hasn't changed much since then. And this is the last one then I have, JD. Obviously Roy Keane on the front as well, which would have been a big feature. And the last one I have is the match programme of my first game, and this does genuinely mean an awful lot to me because it kind of got me into journalism, got me into the League of Ireland.
It's in mint condition as well, Johnny.
It's in mint condition.
Don't lose it.
Probably because it's actually not mine. It was given to me by somebody else who actually edited the programme at the time. I said, is there any chance you have that programme? And thankfully he did. I'm not sure what happened to mine. And I subsequently found an article I wrote in the match programme when I was 15 in which I was saying the League of Ireland has to develop its own players and you can't be sending them all to England. And I was actually writing...
you write the same thing 25 years later.
I was writing at a reasonable standard though. I was like, there are two ways of looking at this. I could write as a 15-year-old, or I'm no better whatsoever 24 years later, and it's probably more the latter. You brought in a couple as well, Jay.
I kind of wish now, given the Irish Soccer magazine, I thought, like, I got the programme from the Holland game because I was on 98 FM at the time, and the late Johnny Lyons was at the game. He gave me the programme after. The programme was of exceptional quality in terms of the articles, in terms of what was in the programme. Roy Keane was on the front cover, which was interesting given the game he had. I brought in my first 3 games I went to for Spurs. So my first ever game, which is the 2nd of April 1988, Easter, Tottenham against Portsmouth. Steve Hodge on the front cover, who sold his Maradona jersey that he swapped to the 86 World Cup quarter-final for I think £7 million in the last year.
What?
Yeah. Auctioned it.
Yeah, auctioned it, yeah. For like millions.
Did you see Maradona's sister tried to say it wasn't the original one, didn't she?
I don't know that.
DNA could have been cross-paternal DNA. Would have to come into
Not sure about any of that now. Not sure about any of that.
The hand of God certainly wasn't involved.
So Tottenham Hotspur, ADP, Happy Easter against Portsmouth.
Did they win?
1988. They lost 1-0. Pretty grim. Then against Liverpool, a year later, 1989. I was looking through the Liverpool team here. Grobbelaar, Ablett, Staunton, Nicol, Ronnie Whelan, Gary Gillespie, Peter Beardsley, John Aldridge, Ray Houghton, John Barnes, Steve McMahon, Alex Watson and David Burrows.
2 subs,
Even now, today, you can relate to those names.
And 1990 against Man United, so United team, Les Seedy with Viv Anderson, Colin Gibson, Mark Robbins, Mike Phelan, Gary Pallister, Brian Robson, Neil Webb, Brian McClare, Mark Hughes, Danny Wallace, Russell Beardsmore and Clayton Blackmore.
That's probably the team that won the FA Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah, about a month later, Gascoigne and Lineker for Spurs, so... They were the first 3
no
Spurs
Lee
games.
Martin involved. The player who scored the goal.
No Lee Martin and Eddie Gormley was playing on the books of Spurs around then. I don't think he ever played, but he was definitely in the books.
He would have been at Spurs around that time. Yeah,
the great Eddie Gormley. Obviously Pat's fame, but some of the memorabilia. Lara, I get the sense. I don't know if do you even have your league medals. Do you have your cup medal, European Cup medal?
Yeah. I've just recently moved house, John, and it took me a while to remember where they were because obviously you bury them away somewhere just in case you get burgled or whatever, but and I was saying to myself, right, you know what, I need to get them engraved. But the winners' medals for winning the old football Division 1 are tiny. You can't get them engraved. But so I spent a little bit of time looking at them. I've loads of the Irish, the magazine thing with Bob Hennessy. I've got loads of those. I've got like some great stuff. One of my favourites would be, I mean, obviously I played in quite a few finals and all those kind of things, but I was a kid at Preston. I think just turned 17. We had a practice match, and so Bobby Charlton was playing, obviously for the first team. And I've just got a picture with me and him. Basically, I was like trying to get quite tight to him to obviously stop him playing. So that's up there with a few others.
You gotta show us that, Laura.
Well, I can't at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah, next week or whenever.
Jerseys, Laura? Did you like swap any jerseys or keep any jerseys or swapped or anything like that?
Yeah, I had a few jerseys mounted. I've actually got. Kenny Dalglish said to me one day, because I've never played against him, obviously for Ireland, Scotland, and he said I'll give you one of yours if you give me one of mine. Well, I think I got the better deal of that, didn't I? But I've got most of my jerseys. Quite a few of them are mounted. I've got some fab pictures of obviously finals, etc. But I've got an absolutely brilliant picture of it was Christmas party. It was Liverpool's Christmas party, photograph taken by Craig Johnson, who was a little bit of an amateur photographer and everything. We used to sell the photograph to the, I think it was to the Star or something, and obviously it paid for the night out just about. But I've got this picture, and I mean, it would not be allowed now for different reasons because it was fancy dress.
Okay. Just be careful, Lara. Be careful. Live radio.
Well, I
He's not
don't
showing
need
us
to
the
say
picture, John. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't need to say anything because you can guess obviously what, there was all sorts of different characters in there. But I think, in fact, I know there's only me and Craig Johnson have got that picture. No, because I just, after he'd taken it and it had been in the paper, and I just thought, you know what an absolutely fab picture. Because my big thing about it is the lads are so made up in different guises, it's really, really difficult to actually decipher who is who. And the fact we'd had one or two sherbets as well didn't help. But yeah, I've got it. And it's massive. Honestly, it's massive. And I have it at home. And people who come round just go, "Oh my God!" Now I don't know if they're saying "Oh my God" because it's so at the moment that would be so wrong on many different levels. Or "Oh my God," that's bloody brilliant.
Probably the first one.
Yeah, but I love the fact that you.
Sorry to interrupt, Dan. On that team. This is the Liverpool Christmas party, which we can show, and it was John Scales' diary. He, Phil Babb, and Neil Ruddock. And the big thing at the time, Dan, was this three at the back is great. Like, this is revolutionary. And now, after a few years, it's back again.
I have to say, I mean, we've learned today that we both like Succession. I didn't realise you had a crippling John Scales addiction in your younger years. That
He never made a tackle.
Yeah.
I was probably kind of a too nice of a defender as a 12-year-old or whatever at the time. But John Scales, actually, he was one of the guys then who came out after the whole Wimbledon thing and the experience. He found it very, very tough. So he was one of these Wimbledon kind of graduates who think there was a Q&A with him in one of the magazines, and they said, what was your initiation at Wimbledon, JD? And he said, you had to be able to kick the ball 100 yards or they wouldn't sign you. And I don't know if he was joking or not. Genuinely, like, that was Wimbledon at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the fact that you sold the photo to pay for the party. Like, that is, there's a degree of like, there's an entrepreneurial spirit there in the players. It's like, people are going to be interested, give them the photo and let's get it paid for.
Yeah.
Well, is it? Yeah. I was going to say, the other thing would be that every month of the football season, ourselves and Everton, we're sponsored by this brewery thing. You'd have like Player of the Week or whatever, and it was, I think you got a bottle of vodka or 12 bottles of vodka and everything. So when we used to have our party at Christmas, we'd go to the guys who organised it from whatever brewery and said, "Look, can we swap all these bottles of vodka, whatever, for champagne?" And they went, "Yeah, of course you can." So when you see some of the pictures, obviously, we're all a little bit worse for the wear, you'd be surprised to know.
There you go. I mean, listen.
The most bizarre text here, 53116. Craig Johnson was a photographer at the Irish Open, ran past me, 3 cameras hanging off him. This is one of our texters.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, so...
yeah, he's brilliant, he's a great photographer, absolutely brilliant. And I mean, listen, so he took the picture and was in it. So he had one of those...
Okay, like a selfie before selfies existed.
Well, yeah, but also
right.
Where you line everybody up and then you run on.
Okay, yeah.
And he was, I told you about his eating, didn't I, before games?
No.
No. Well, so what? So we played 3 o'clock, so we'd have lunch at sort of 12 o'clock, and you couldn't have steak in those days. That was banned. But a few years earlier, they say to you, yeah, let's have steak. But we used to have chicken and beans and all that kind of stuff. And Craig Johnson, I kid you not, turned up with a little Tupperware bowl, and he had rice and peas in it. And we used to absolutely slaughter him. And on many occasions, he'd coming into the 80th minute of the games and everything, he would be the only one still running. So, the joke was on us, basically. But nobody changed. Nobody changed the rice and peas.
Yeah, modern medicine. Until Wenger came in, I think, wasn't it? 53116, Mark, modest Lawrenson, pound for pound, cannot name a better Republic of Ireland player from a lifelong Chelsea fan. Nice text. Another VAR offside ruining the excitement of a goal by a small margin. The sooner they get rid of offside in the game, the football, the better. It's no longer relevant. Don't know about that.
No.
Hi lads, what's your thoughts on Irish fans of Premier League clubs referring to their clubs as us and we, says Connor in Dublin. Dan, Johnny, what do you think of that?
Yeah, can I just be a
go on,
politician
Jim.
here and answer the first or the second texter there about the offside. There is an interesting thing happening with offside at the moment where players are blatantly offside but can sort of then manoeuvre themselves onside. We saw that during the week in Man United Leicester, and Celtic have been doing it a bit as well. As for the VAR, I mean, it was the right decision. So in fairness, in terms of
It does take
Johnny's answering all these texts.
it does take the emotion out of it, though. Like for Conor Cody, it was brilliant, and you wonder, like,
was a
I don't
great
remember
moment.
football being broken before VAR.
Yeah,
came in.
I don't like VAR. I mean, I've said this before. I did a poll on the League of Ireland fans. Nobody, like maybe 15% want VAR in the League of Ireland. Nobody wants it, and I like that. I don't mind the referee getting the decision wrong. The Everton joy in that goal today, and then even though it was rightly pulled out for offside, who cares really? You know.
Those and it's more so people from Ireland referring to themselves as Manx or Scousers, or referring to other people as Manx and Scousers or whatever. That wouldn't be for me now. I have to say. Us and yeah, sure. Listen, if that's how people feel, that's how they feel.
Ivan Toney hat-trick, Brentford 3 Leeds 1. West Ham have scored at Chelsea 1-0.
Here we go.
Mikel Antonio. What is going on at Chelsea, Mark?
Well, they just signed Aubameyang. Has he started? Do we know?
No, he hasn't. No.
Yeah, well, he will improve them. I presume he'll improve them because he's got a fantastic relationship with Tuchel. When he played for him, scored lots and lots of goals. But the thing is, John, you can't sign that many players and throw them all together and expect them to all of a sudden be brilliant. So that's going to take a little bit of time. What I do feel with them is I thought, defensively they were very, very good the last sort of season and a half. They obviously signed players to play in there, so they're all getting used to the system, etc. And doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, like Fofana's making his debut today. They made a lot of changes to the team. Like they brought in Reece James, Conor Gallagher, Mateo Kovacic, and Christian Pulisic from the Southampton defeat. So, but West Ham have got their act together. Your mate Moisey, how is he getting on down there in West Ham?
All good. I think he spent zillions, hasn't he?
Yeah. Paqueta's a good signing because he's in the Brazilian team on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And he kind of, it was a good and clever move. We only sort of heard about it when it happened, which was the old way it used to be. So I can imagine Moisey he'd be like Daniel Craig, sort of not telling anybody anything. So yeah, no, they'll be absolutely fine. I've told you before. I mean that the two owners have given him virtually everything that he's wanted, and I think the fact that they bombed him out the first time he was there and got him back the second has just put him in a fantastic position in terms of buying and selling players. But they completely trust him, and I think eventually this football club will be sold to the Czech guy who's already bought a lump of it, hasn't he?
Okay.
And I think what they've done, probably owners have done a little bit, is it's always a gamble if you're spending millions and millions, but they're thinking, we get there in the top six and they'll bail out with millions themselves and they'll go and do whatever they want to do. I think that's the end game for them.
Philip Billing and Dominic Solanke have scored for Bournemouth. It's now 2-2 away to Nottingham Forest. Newcastle 0, Crystal Palace 0, Chelsea 0, West Ham, as we just said. Brentford 3, Leeds 1, Spurs 1, Fulham 0, Wolves 1, Southampton 0. We'll talk after the break about Shamrock Rovers and Bohemians. Just on tomorrow, Mark, this is going to be a really interesting game. Man United versus Arsenal. Ten Hag obviously knows how to coach, and he's stopped the bleeding, I suppose.
Yeah. That's people will always tell you've been in football a long time, you build from the back, so he started that. I'm not too sure about the 85 million he's played for the boy from Ajax, but he knows him, he'll know which buttons to press. He stopped the bleeding, and it looks like they're on the road to recovery, but this will be their most difficult game of the season. So Arsenal have got a swagger about them, which is good. They're good to watch. Goals from all areas as well. Seem to have tightened up defensively. It'll be the game of the weekend, but I won't mind betting it might be a draw.
You always say that.
Well, obviously. That means I don't know. Ronaldo
staying, is that a negative? Just in terms of his mood, in terms of the dressing room?
Well, do you know what, though? I think Ten Hag is such a strong character. He comes over as a strong character. I think if he's a real a poor influence, I think he'll just chuck him and he'll have to train with the stiffs. He's not daft. Ten Hag isn't bothered. So it's up to Ronaldo to play the game, basically. And I think he'll be all right. I think he'll come to terms with it and stuff. I don't suppose his Instagram he's gotten any more. He's probably losing millions as we speak now in terms of followers, etc. Not that I understand that thing from more than iota, but no, I think he'll just have to buckle down. And the World Cup's coming up, isn't it?
Did he ever do that big interview he was meant to do, Ronaldo? Do you remember?
No. Well, Portugal are not in the World Cup.
We'll all hear the truth, and
they're not. Sorry. Excuse my ignorance.
Yeah, we'll all hear the truth, and
and never did. Maybe if he was going to leave, that would have been the case.
It's probably good for Ten Hag that he beat Liverpool, got Ronaldo on the pitch, but do you know what I mean? Like, he sort of in the sort of the power game, like he showed he can do it without Ronaldo needing to be the hero or something, But yet was able to sort of use him as a squad player and sort of, I don't know, just have the roles, the power roles in the right place there, if you know what I mean.
53106, if you want to get in touch, we'll be back after the break. Mark Lawrenson, Dan McDonnell and Johnny Ward on Football Saturday.
Aston Villa versus Man City on Saturday Night Football. Live only on Sky Sports.
Welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5 in the company of Mark Lawrenson, former Republic of Ireland defender, Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent, and the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward. We brought you 2 competitions earlier on the show today. The first answer was for the Horse Racing Ireland competition, which was Johnny Murta. So congratulations to Kevin Hyland. You've won 4 Champions bundles for the Longines Irish Champions Weekend at both Leopardstown next Saturday and the Curragh next Sunday. In our Champions Travel competition, the mystery voice was Gary Neville. And congratulations to Colin Foskin. You've won a €250 Champions Travel voucher. You're in for the main draw as well. Dan, you were at Shamrock Rovers Bohemians last night. Busy week for both clubs for different reasons. Yeah,
so the first game, for 8 years or almost 8 years, where Bows weren't managed by Keith Long after his departure on Tuesday, after a defeat in Dalymount on Monday. Like Derek Pender, sort of a long-time club favourite, and Trevor Crowley, the assistant, sort of took the reins. They're very good. They lost all the previous games with Shamrock Rovers this season. First half was not great, to be honest. Even Johnny was sat next to me, so you can sort of verify this. It was sort of flat enough by Derby standards. Second half, Bows played with a lot more energy, a bit more intensity. A few tackles flying in. Great goal by Liam Burt. And in fairness, Shamrock Rovers, Stephen Bradley, after admitted their performance was flat. They'll never say it, but I think maybe in some ways, they're reasonably comfortable still at the top of the table. They start a European group stage campaign next Thursday. You kind of wonder if just even subconsciously you lose some kind of edge or something from the position of control that you're possibly in, and they're about to head into a very exciting time in their lives, and maybe just they didn't hit their levels in this game. But great goal by Liam Burt. Still a lot of emotion at Bows. The Keith Long departure was, I think, quite emotional for people at the club, because he was well liked there and had been there through such a transitional period in their history. And still, Derek Monaghan, who passed away recently, big club figure, Liam Burt, would have referenced him in the aftermath as well. So it was nice. I think they needed a celebration at Dalymount, because they've had a tough time of it of late, and they earned it.
53106, John Duggan, how little you know about soccer. Portugal are in the World Cup. Yes, I made a mistake. That's possible that we can make mistakes. Lara, I do need to apologise for you, because they did beat North Macedonia, didn't they, in that playoff?
It was Italy who got done by North Macedonia.
Portugal. They kind of.
The Serbia game was in my head. That was the one that was in my head. The last minute winner from Mitrovic. So
kind of Ronaldo's sort of swan song-ish as a player, you'd imagine.
53106, great programme, guys. Could listen to Mark Lawrenson all day. Great to see, kept his medal and photographs, says Jim. So, is there a worry that Rovers are losing players? If Andy Lyons is leaving, Danny Mandrew left, is there a worry, or is there a good replenishment there?
Obviously, give Dan his take on this after. I don't really see this as a concern. And the players Rovers have lost, Andy Lyons will be a loss, but they've Justin Ferrugia to go in left wing back straight away. Justin Ferrugia. They've Neil Ferrugia come in. Justin Ferrugia, obviously. Coming in to almost look like he could be Danny Mandroya's replacement before he goes inevitably as well. But Rovers have invested in, Dan did a piece on this recently in The Independent, they've invested in young players, in putting them into school ideally, keeping them in this country obviously with the new Brexit rules, graduating towards the first team. I would have liked to have seen some of those younger players last night. I thought Rovers lacked legs again, and I thought they were a bit flat. But I think Stephen Bradley has his eye on, the European campaign, and it's going to be exciting to see Justin Neal and the likes of Ademola Maku play, and Andy Lyons getting a move to Blackpool. Rovers have stuck it out a bit in terms of the money they wanted for him. I think it'll work out quite a good deal for them in the end. And Irish football's in a far better place now, JD, where we had Seamus Coleman going over for 2 bags of tea not that long ago. Now we're able to say, no, he's not going, we're going to hold on to him. We might get $1 million, $1.5 million down the line. And it's an incentive for players to join Shamrock Rovers if they see what Andy Lyons has done. And he's not even there that long. He's only there this season. They've turned him into a really good player. And I wouldn't be as negative on players coming and going. A lot of them will end up coming back, like Graham Burke as well. And England is still massive. I wouldn't be that negative. I think Irish football is in an improving place.
Yeah, I think they he's not gone for 30 grand. I think it's around 300 grand sterling. So what's 350 grand euro for a player they signed 8 months ago. And I think people there be realistic. We spoke about earlier with Scotland, everyone knows their place in the food chain relative to England to some degree. And if, Blackpool are in the Championship as well. I think they've offered Andy Lyons a sort of a 3.5 year deal. So I don't think Rovers are going to stand in the way of something like that once they get a reasonable fee. And in fact, I think they would point to the money that they've made on transfer fees in the last couple of years. Not just, I see Spurs have scored there, but Bazunu, but also Liam Scales and other players as well too. There's stuff about the Rovers accounts during the week. Johnny's right. I did a piece on their academy. The club was sort of losing money. It's now turning the tide somewhat. This European campaign is going to help, and part of that is player sales. And as Johnny says, they will probably use the Andy Lyons example to go to other players at other clubs and say, well, look what we did for him. He came here last winter, his reputation was mixed, and now we've managed to get him a move to a Championship club. You come and sign for us.
Mixed?
I think he'd had a bad end to the season at Bows. I think he had a bad end to the season at Bows. I've always been a fan of Andy Lyons, but he didn't have his best form in the last couple of months of last season. But now, he's got he's thriving now. Put it like this: there was some interest from the UK last winter, but I think compensation would have made people balk, and now Blackpool are paying 300 grand for him. So
more of a wing back than a defensive.
Yeah, and they've switched him
to a left wing back as well.
Well, Johnny talks about Farrugia, but will Farrugia end up playing there for them?
They play him on the right.
They like the inverted. They like with this whole thing of the inverted wing backs would be a thing that some people would like. You play
Dan had a piece
left footer on the right and
fullback
right
Rovers let go to UCD, going to Italy. So they have they've access to a lot of players coming through, and there just seems to be a little I don't know what, Dan broke that story, but there is a mad movement of players to countries that aren't the UK this year, that some of them are totally left field.
There's 7 Irish players in Italy now.
That is mad, that is absolutely
I don't know,
mad.
from a situation where, Robbie Keane, Liam Brady, you can maybe pick 1 or 2 other examples that I'm probably forgetting. But now in the last, 18 months, you've got 7 going there, yeah.
Spurs have got a second goal. Harry Kane against Fulham, 2-0. Now Chelsea have equalised 1-1 against West Ham. Ben Chilwell on the mark for Chelsea. So it is Brentford 3, Leeds 1. Brentford going great guns. Chelsea 1, West Ham 1, Newcastle 0, Crystal Palace 0, Nottingham Forest 2, Bournemouth 2, Tottenham 2, Fulham 0, Wolves 1, Southampton 0, and Everton and Liverpool finished goalless earlier on. Aston Villa play Manchester City at 5:30. Laro, Stevie G, is he in trouble?
Yeah, not massively. And the reason I say that is because the chief exec is Christian Perslow, who would have been at Liverpool when Stephen was there. And I think he's backed most of his signings. I think they're owned by 2 American guys, and you don't seem to hear much of them at all. So it seems that Christian Perslow is left to run the show in the Midlands, and obviously he keeps losing games, and then there's going to be curtains for him. But I just look at Villa and they've no identity in terms of defensively. They keep swapping and changing. So that would only tell you one thing, is they're just not good enough. The boy they signed, I can't remember his name, he's obviously out for ages, isn't he? Which hasn't helped them. But and they've tried to play 2 up front, but he's probably going to have to be a little bit more, let's make sure defensively we're tight before we even think about doing anything else up the top of the pitch.
There was a good piece in the Currency today about this.
Diego Carlos, I think you meant.
Yeah.
That's him. Yeah.
Dion Fanning had a piece about Gerrard today. Like I was definitely one of these people who looked at Gerrard as a player, and obviously an unbelievable player, but in terms of like his personality and sort of charisma off the pitch, like he would never have struck you as a guy who was definitely going to become a good manager. And I guess the I wouldn't play down what he achieved in Scotland. I don't really follow Scottish football. He obviously did well there, but he probably got I was thinking of this the other night, JD. It's not that long ago Gerrard was being appointed as Jurgen Klopp's successor almost, which again, like, there are so many stupid people out there who think, oh, he's a good player and he was a Liverpool legend, make him the manager. I mean, there are literally 1 million people, like 2/3 of managers, give or take, they don't get past their first job.
A lot of that has got to do, surely, with the fact that these were hugely influential players in the game for 15 years, and like Lampard, Gerrard, and there's the relationships they have with the press. Yeah, they got on with journalists.
But this is virtually no relevance.
There
whatsoever.
are 3 managers in the Premier League you'd have to argue that are better than Lampard from an English perspective. Steve Cooper, Graham Potter and Eddie Howe.
Yeah, but in fairness to Lampard, it is early days. He didn't do a bad job.
Lampard, you'd have to wait and see.
Yeah, didn't do a bad job at Derby. Chelsea was still, like, he didn't get all that long and whatever. It's early days. But with Gerrard, like, the fact that he was linked with the Liverpool job on the basis of sort of winning what he'd won with Rangers, it now looks a bit mad. If he loses the Villa job, which looks like he probably will, where does he go from there? And the thought of him becoming Liverpool manager, which was actually like quite an obvious thing to some people not that long ago, would become absolutely ridiculous. But I suppose the point Dion was making, and this was evident again, like Villa were really like in the game the other night, but they conceded straight away after going 1-1 against Arsenal. And what would worry me is Gerrard, he seems to be honest to a fault, in the sense that he's kind of blaming the players afterwards, and that's kind of the road to nowhere. I mean, players will just stop believing in you, and will probably start slightly losing faith and maybe down in tools a bit, but they're not a very good side, JD. When they beat Everton, I thought they were poor, even though they won the game. They obviously haven't done much else, and he's definitely in big trouble, I think.
But he's lost, sorry John, didn't he? He lost his coach.
Michael Beale went to QPR, yeah.
Yeah, and that's obviously impacted him greatly, I would suggest, looking at results.
And that's he did a decent job at Rangers. Like, he actually did do a decent job at Rangers.
And like, it's everything is about, like, it's like everything is about the manager, but like we spoke about Taylor and Clough, but the coaches and your assistant manager is massively important. And if Gerrard has admitted, like, and I think Lampard as well, they can't do everything, and it's not all about that personality, and you obviously got to get that right. But I'm just not sure if Gerrard has the charisma to kind of get Phil out of the problems that they're in. Maybe I'm wrong.
Douglas Luiz, the only new player in from the defeat at Arsenal, so he comes in for Emi Buendia. He was going to leave the club, but he's staying at Villa. We also have Jan Bednarek, who was signed on loan from Southampton, is on the bench. Leander Dendoncker is not in the squad. He also came from Wolves. For City, Kevin De Bruyne is in for Julian Alvarez, the only change from the team that thumped Nottingham Forest by 6-0. Jack Grealish back to his old club as sub after missing 3 games because of injuries.
Wow, £100 million.
Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
I still think
hopefully it comes good for him, but you have to worry.
Well, yeah, he's not done it. He's not done it, has he? Absolutely, totally, just not done it whatsoever. And I know he said before that Pep likes him because he can slow the game down. Well, he'd like him better if he's like creating chances and scoring goals. I wouldn't mind betting. Richarlison's
just hit the post for Spurs. I think the worry for Grealish, he's not regularly in the team. Even when he's in the first couple of games, he wasn't in the team for the full match, or he was on the bench, or he came on, or he was on the bench, or he started and he came off after half time. But I don't think he's one of those. He's not he's not in the 2 or 3 behind Haaland automatically. I think Foden would be ahead of him.
Don't you think Johnny needs to be the main man, because after being the main man at Aston Villa,
only one main man at Man City, and that's Pep Guardiola, and that's the problem for Grealish.
Yeah, well, the second one's De Bruyne, but yeah, I would totally agree with you.
Haaland's not bad either. It's like, you're number 3, Erling. Yeah, whatever. Oh,
what a goal, what a goal.
We have a game, JD.
Fulham have scored an absolute cracker.
This man just cannot stop scoring.
We could see that before he's even scored.
This is unbelievable. Mitrovic, who nearly scored earlier, and as we're making the point for pre-season, is he going to score Premier League level? Is he? Hell, he's like banging them in. And this has been the bits I've seen, it's been a great game as well, end to end.
The only thing I would say about Mitrovic is Pookie.
And
Well, Pookie, in his couple of times in the Premier League, scored very, very early on. Looked like he was going to score every single week, and it just completely dried up. That'll be me only worry about Mitrovic.
yeah, like he scored. I'm just going through this.
Just his international form has been
6 now.
so high class as well over the last.
It's almost like he's hit
15 months.
another gear, though. I find, Mitrovic.
Does look like it, yeah.
Over 100 goals now for
He's
Fulham.
off again now.
All right, chaps. Do you think he'll score 15 goals this season?
Yeah, I do actually now. Yeah, I do.
All right. We'll have a little bet off
Yeah,
there.
I'll take a sport and
What are you saying?
We'll just go. Mitrovic to score
One of
15.
those jerseys, Laura.
How many is Haaland going to get?
We're going to do.
League games.
It's going to be a bottle of
Listen.
vodka. We're going to turn it into a bottle of champagne then through a couple of Laura's connections.
Cool.
Brilliant. Brentford 4, Leeds 2. Brentford have scored again in London, so that's an interesting scoreline. Tottenham 2, Fulham 1 now. Wolves 1, Southampton 0. Nottingham Forest 2, Bournemouth 2. Newcastle 0, Crystal Palace 0. Chelsea 1, West Ham 1. These games approaching full time in the Premier League. That fourth goal for Brentford is coming through in a moment. We'll let you know when it refreshes.
Ivan Toney's got a hat trick, John, hasn't he?
He got the first 3 goals, Laro, in London. 5-3-1-6. Hopefully, Rovers are going to approach the group stages. This is of the Conference League with real ambition and plenty of self-belief, and make it their firm goal to get out of the group and to progress to the next stage of the conference rather than simply offering themselves up as group whipping boys.
I what I find interesting is that Rovers have, even in some of the games they've played in recent weeks, and I've been thinking about this, like they've played a little bit more direct and a little bit more on the counter at times. I kind of wonder, are they just sort of preparing themselves in a way, not preparing themselves, but like they're a team that dominates the ball a lot in their games at home, but naturally they're going to go into some of these European games and be off the ball a lot. And
Off the ball.
Yeah, as we say.
Very good.
Yeah. And
Saturday news talk.
they need to they need to sort of adjust to that. I don't know, like the game next Thursday is Djurgården, who are like one of the top teams in Sweden. They're at home. It's probably one of the games on paper they have the best chance to get points, but I think you have to be smart too and know when to play. So
Have they made much money so far?
they've
Yeah,
made
by Irish
they've
standards.
made 3.6 million euros so far, Laura.
Brilliant.
So like it's a lot, and they can potentially, I think it's $500,000 for a game you win, and I think 166 grand for a draw, but also you full houses for the games as well too. So no, I mean the money, that Conference League, the thing about it is like there's very little prize money difference between that and the Europa League, and it's obviously a bit of a political thing from UEFA to say we're not letting you countries really into the Champions League anymore, but we're going to get you a lot of money through this avenue, and that's effectively what's happening. Yeah.
Richards got booked there, and he's given a lot of dissent to the referees. Be careful he doesn't get sent off here. Spurs 2, Fulham 1. Kai Havertz has scored for Chelsea. 2-1, they lead West Ham.
Big one.
They've come from behind in that London derby. 2-2. This is subject to VAR now, but it's just coming through on the screen. West Ham have equalised at Stamford Bridge. Andy, our producer, is a Chelsea fan. He's through the depths of joy and agony there.
Spoke to him. He was at the Liverpool game during the week. Said, "Yeah, the atmosphere was great. It wasn't a great night out afterwards. I guess that's what you get in Liverpool."
Maxwell Cornet,
Tuesday.
2-2. Chelsea West
That's
Ham.
nuts.
Bournemouth have scored. Bournemouth have scored from 2-0 down. Bournemouth have scored a third. Now, just as I said, these are just coming up live on the screen, subject to VAR. But Jadon Anthony has scored the third goal at the City Ground. That's a huge score for Bournemouth.
Forest. All these new lads. I mean, I think Forest spent more money than the Bundesliga, Serie A, and the Liga all combined. How could you possibly want them to succeed? Like, no.
It actually it does show how dysfunctional European football is, that there's just such a net spend in one country. Just on
Brian and Mbeumo, by the way, for the fourth goal for Brentford.
Destroying all those Forest anecdotes about winning the European Cup, little old Forest. Now little old Forest are spending more money
than countries put together.
than entire leagues put together.
The one last thing
subject to VAR, the West Ham score 2-2 against Chelsea, subject to VAR now.
One last thing I would say on Rovers, JD, is that I would like them during this campaign to bring in these young players, give them game time and give them a bit of pace up front. Even Gideon Tete, the young lad coming in, has done very well in the little cameos he's had. Ferajai, Amaku and Farouja, I'd like to see them play. I think they need legs at times, but with Jack Byrne hitting form, I think you know, Dan had a tweet about it during the week. I think Virgin Media has put them behind Man United in terms of the pecking order. But if you're Irish, I suggest, if you're not a Man United fan, how about watching the team in green and white that isn't Celtic but Shamrock Rovers, because I think they'll be good to watch.
5-3-1-6 lads. Gerard's best coach has left to manage QPR. That's the main reason for the drop in form. He was the brains behind the operation at Villa and Rangers, says Mike in Mayo. Hi guys, I had the pleasure of seeing Laro for the Euro 88 qualifiers. Could you ask him about missing Spain 82, especially when Northern Ireland did well with inferior players, says Richie Doyle.
What's that?
Laro, you're breaking my heart today. Hi guys, I had the pleasure of seeing Laro for the Euro 88 qualifiers. Could you ask him about missing Spain in 82, especially when Northern Ireland did well with inferior players, says Richie.
Yeah, what's he trying to say? I missed that. I don't get it.
What was it like watching that Northern Irish team at the World Cup?
Right.
At the World Cup when Ireland possibly could have been there.
Listen,
Goal chalked off, Chelsea 2, West Ham 1.
Oh, thank God for that.
Are we ever going to get
What was it? I don't know. Do you have any feelings on that, or did you just move past those missing out on the tournaments pretty quickly because you were sort of playing for Liverpool? So was it different?
It just meant you got a longer break, so we got more time in Marbella for whatever.
Your love affair.
Well, anybody who was in Belgium in 1981 now wouldn't be too pleased hearing that, Lara, to be honest.
Okay, I apologise.
Jan Keulemans, wasn't it? It's Chelsea 2, West Ham 1 now. Brentford 4, Leeds 2. Newcastle 0, Crystal Palace 0. Nottingham Forest 2, Bournemouth 3. Tottenham 2, Fulham 1. And Wolves 1, Southampton 0. Wolves on the verge of winning that game in the
When was the last time Newcastle won, John?
They beat Nottingham Forest, didn't they, a few weeks ago? I think that's the only victory they've had.
One win, yeah.
It is, isn't it?
But they've been playing probably better than the results have suggested. They played poorly away to Brighton, but they were good the other night.
Yeah, they were. But I love the fact Eddie Howe was complaining that obviously no British teams would sell the players to Newcastle. Well, good luck with that one.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he's complaining teams have put their prices up. It's almost as though you're being linked with a country with limitless amounts of money.
People
look for more money from you, imagine.
We only sell meat to Saudi Arabia.
The away jerseys were obviously very illustrative of where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Niall has been in touch. Ange Postecoglou, what an appointment Celtic have made. He's assembled a squad for peanuts compared to the Premier League clubs, and Celtic would beat half the teams in the league, would definitely beat Man United.
You can rest JD.
$1 billion in 10 years. Richarlison.
This is merited. It was a lovely move. They had players queuing up. This battle for the top 4 is going to be compelling, I think.
So Spurs 3, Fulham 1. He has been sensational, I think, since he's joined, and he hasn't been even in the team. Started for the first time today, Richarlison, the Brazilian. 3-1 against Fulham in the Premier League. The game wasn't even on TV last night, was it? Shamrock Rovers and Bohemians?
No, that's because they've knocked. They've started to knock the Connacht Street side, so the gantry has gone as part of the refurbishment. So
instead, they were in Oriel, a pitch that every text I got was about that pitch. Like it looked like a Nastro pitch that was I don't know.
Well, it looks like what it is. RT did want to cover Bowes Rovers, but they can't at the moment because of the works that Daily meant. So that's basically, in fairness, that is the reason.
Richarlison's goal has been checked by VAR, and Brentford have got a 5th. Juan Wissa has scored against Leeds. 5-2, they're leading Leeds.
When Brentford are hot, they're hot, aren't they? Like, you know.
Sorry, Lara?
I tell you what, the lad they bought from Hull's going to be some player. Brentford,
yeah. Who is that now?
Double-barreled name, I think.
Keane Lewis Potter, yeah.
Yeah, I kept getting told about 6 months ago about him that they were all looking at him. I think Brentford pushed the boat out to take him.
He knows what he's doing, Thomas Frank. He's good at changing tactics and games, and they play entertaining football. And they've got obviously a lot of money.
They're extremely well run, aren't they? They really seem to do the homework about players that they buy in.
Yeah.
And they don't buy many duffers, certainly, do they?
Yeah.
The agony goes on here. It's still 2-1.
If they had it's been ruled out, Richarlison's goal. This is the pain of VAR. 2-1 now to Fulham. 5 minutes of stoppage time. We're in the 92nd minute at the moment. Shane Duffy, I don't think it's got on.
He got booked as well for taking his jersey off for Richarlison. I mean, the ultimate pain of getting booked for a goal is disallowed because you took your top off. I mean, imagine if that booking cost them later in the season.
Yeah, I can't imagine Lara did that in the 80s, to be honest.
No.
In the Championship, Blackburn 2, Bristol City 3 as a result. Luton 1, Wigan 2, latest score. Millwall 2, Cardiff 0, the latest. Norwich 3, Coventry 0 is a result. Preston 0, Birmingham 1, Rotherham 1, Watford 1. These are latest scores, and it's just finished. Swansea 1, QPR 0. In Scotland, it was a brilliant result for Celtic earlier on, 4-0 win over Rangers. It has finished Hibernian 1, Kilmarnock 0, Livingston 1, Hearts 0, Motherwell 0, Dundee United 0, Ross County. They're all results, by the way, as is St Johnstone 3, St Mirren 0. It is latest score, Ross County 0, Aberdeen 1. And going back to the Premier League, as I just said, Brentford 5, Leeds 2, Chelsea 2, West Ham 1, Newcastle 0, Crystal Palace 0, Nottingham Forest 2, Bournemouth 3, and Spurs 2, Fulham 1. Irish lads in England today, a lot of the players seem to be getting regular game time, Dan. I see Josh Cullen played last night.
Yeah, there's been maybe a shortage of absolute headline stories today. This was Nathan Collins is playing for a Wolves team that's kept a clean sheet. Amoba Badele, again involved for a Norwich team that's kept a clean sheet. So you're probably looking defensively. It's not a million miles away from the squad being named, and likes of Duffy, Coleman. Probably like to see Matt Doherty play a bit, wouldn't you?
Hasn't featured at all for Spurs this season.
No, I know it might be a situation that when those games come around, Conte is very happy for him to actually go and get some.
Spurs played 9 games in October. Surely he'll get some game time.
He's going to start playing, and maybe
absolutely.
Those Ireland games could be a nice chance for him to get some minutes under his belt when that time comes. But
Dan and I can ask Stephen Kenny about this. Shameless plug for our live show tomorrow night if that's
best
all right.
of luck with it, lads.
Thanks. We're in Lost Lane, getting lost.
Ask him in here, will you, on Saturday?
Stephen Kenny.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Luton 2, Wigan 2. Luton have scored a late goal, and it's finished Newcastle 0, Crystal Palace 0. Still in injury time in the Spurs game, 2-1 up against Fulham. Nottingham Forest 2, Bournemouth 3. And it's finished. Bournemouth have won at Nottingham Forest. Laura, thanks so much. Mind yourself. Take care.
Good boys. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Laura.
Dan and Johnny, thanks so much for this afternoon. As we wrap up today's show, just let you know about tomorrow's show. We've got 2 live and exclusive Premier League commentary games to bring you. And the first one is between Brighton and Leicester. So Stephen Doyle and Graham Garton bringing the call on that one. That kicks off at 2. And then Nathan Murphy and Kenny Cunningham describing the showdown between Man United and Arsenal kicking off at 4:30. So don't forget, Off the Ball on News Talk tomorrow between 1 and 7. That all in the FM. Also the Sunday paper review across the OTB digital and social channels with Brendan O'Brien and Mick O'Keefe from 11:30. So be sure to join us tomorrow for some great commentaries and conversation. If you missed any of the Saturday panel, Horse Racing Ireland Roadshow previewing Irish Champions Weekend, Longines Champions Weekend with Rob Carney, Johnny Murtagh, Ger Lyons and David Jennings, or any of OTB Football Saturday with Dan McDonnell, Johnny Ward and Laro. You can find a podcast of our content wherever you get your pods or on the OTB Sports app. Spurs 2, Fulham 1, just about to approach full time. Thanks for so much listening to us on your radio here on News Talk today. We'll speak tomorrow at 1. Bye-bye.